Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Killer Author Club. We're so excited. Tonight's guest is Amy Impellizzeri. I got it right. So grab your cocktail, your list of questions for Amy. Sit tight, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Thought you really loved me. Guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me. Guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
Hi again, you guys. I am Killer Kara Ruda, should correct myself, with my co-host Killer Kimberly Bell and Killer Heather Gudenkoff. I always point the wrong way. And we are the Killer Author Club. We were created in 2022, a full year ago, during the dark days of the pandemic when we all three had books coming out and we were looking for a fun way to kind of share our new books coming out and also talk about them in a new and different way. So we thought it would be fun to talk about killing of the fictional kind, of course. So as you know, if you've been with us on the show, we like to talk to our guests about how they kill, why they kill, all types of killing things, but it's all in the fictional sort of way. Okay, so during the episode, drop your questions in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And come join the club. Here's our sales pitch. If you're watching on Facebook and you haven't joined our private group, Killer Author Clubhouse, come join the fun. There are special giveaways in there, secret author book clubs for you to participate in. So come join us there. And mentioning that book club, we have Laura McHugh's phenomenal What's Done in the Darkness coming up soon. So get ready to read that and join us for that. Laura will be stopping by in April. Okay, we also have a YouTube channel. We are up to 253 subscribers. Woohoo! And if you haven't joined us there, please do, because it makes my day when I see our numbers go up. Anyway, but also it's a great place to watch if you want to like broadcast us large on a TV screen. Okay, don't do that. Anyway, okay. Then you can also find us, of course, on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok sometimes. And for links to everything and to watch all the past episodes, go to killerauthorclub.com, where you can also find a lot of merchandise and swag. Okay, that's all of that. Anyway, without further ado, Kimberly, please introduce our special guest.
I would love to. Amy is a reformed corporate litigator, former startup executive, award-winning author of fiction and nonfiction. We're going to talk about both. And host of the Speak Studio original podcast, I Know How This Book Ends. Amy's novels have earned awards and recognitions, including IndieFab Book of the Year, the inaugural Francis Ford Coppola Book and Bottles Pick, what is better than books and wine, National Indie Excellence Awards, and more. Her newest legal drama series, the River's Edge Law Club series, which Kirkus Reviews has compared to Big Little Lies in a starred review, which is like a huge deal if you know anything about Kirkus, is available now. BARR NONE is the latest. It's number 2 in the series. Amy is a tall puppy writer, a past president of the Women's Fiction Writers Association, a 2018 writer in residence at MSJD.org. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Recipient of Miss JD's Road Less Travel Award, a faculty member in Drexel University's MFA in Creative Writing program, and a frequently invited speaker at legal conferences and writing workshops. And in between, she writes novels in her spare time. So, Amy, can you give us like a quick little elevator pitch for BARR NONE?
Yeah, so BARR NONE is the story of Carly Jenner, who is a new attorney at a big prominent law firm in New York City. She has wanted to work there all her life. She has finally gotten her dream job, and her best friend at the firm is named Rain Street. She's the daughter of a prominent film star. The two of them start to unravel a mystery about 3 female lawyers who worked at the firm 10 years earlier. They were colloquially known as the triplets because they lived together and worked together, and they apparently died together 10 years earlier. And as Carly and Rain start to unravel the mystery of the triplets, they start to unravel a little bit themselves.
Loved it. Loved it. And I've got lots of questions. I know the other killers do as well. But for now, everybody, it is time for the killer cocktail.
Yes. So, Amy, you shared with us the illegal sangria
Mm-hmm.
inspired by the book. Can you tell us a little bit about why this mocktail is so special to you?
Well, it's the color. I mean, I'm drinking the illegal version, I will say.
What did you add to the
It's
illegal
got the
version?
wine added to it, but I mean, it's the color. It's just the blood red color. It feels appropriate for tonight and for the books and for the discussion. That's it.
Perfect. Looks so good. Well, cheers to you, Amy, and
Cheers.
congratulations
Cheers.
on another fabulous read.
Thank you so much.
Oops.
Yum.
Now for the big question of the day.
Yes. Okay. It's the portion of the show we've all been waiting for. All right. So USA Today bestselling author of The X, Daniel Gerard, says the firm meets the Devil Wears Prada and former attorney Amy I's newest novel, Bar None, about the sacrifices required to succeed as a female attorney at New York City's most prestigious law firm. A smart and thrilling page turner you don't want to miss. So congratulations again, Amy.
Thank
Now
you.
we all want to know the answer to our killer question of the day, which is, why do you kill?
Well, you know, it's actually really funny because I was talking about my newest manuscript to a friend, and I was telling like the whole story, and I was really excited about the story, and she was like, "Well, yeah, it's really exciting, but I mean, who dies in it?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, because you know, it does sort of make it a little more exciting when someone dies, and sometimes it's exciting because you know you're trying to figure out who did it, and sometimes you're really in Bar None, it's really about sort of what happened. What's the timeline? What happened? What's the real story? It's not just a whodunit. It's really a why, how, and did it happen? So I just think that this book really kind of took on a life of its own. I was writing Bar None at the same time I was writing the first book in the series, and Bar None started to really get grittier and grittier and grittier and more murdery and more dark. And I
love that. We love that.
leaned into it, and I really, honestly, like now that's all I want to write.
Kind of addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Murdering is exciting and addictive. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes. I mean, it's definitely the kind of books I want to read. So you always, I think, start to sort of lean towards writing the kinds of books you want to read.
100%. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So Niels asks about the series. Has anyone read the first book? But you said before, I think before we actually came on air, that they're kind of standalones, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to read the first in order to read the second.
You don't. And that's how I wrote them. And the thing is, they're part of the River's Edge Law Club series. The series is grounded in the town of River's Edge, where they basically take place in or around. It's a fictional town in New York. It's a town that is impersonating a small town. It's a commuter town to Manhattan. It's supposed to be, you know, it's got all the trappings and appearances of a small town where everyone should know each other and know each other's secrets, but that's not the case at all. And whereas other towns are known for like their biotech communities or their flagship stores, River's Edge is known for its lawyers. And it has a law club, and it's where all the backdoor stuff happens. The Manhattan lawyers are drawn to this area. All the New York lawyers come to this area, and they sort of settle deals, settle cases, make deals, and keep a lot of people out. And so I got really excited about that sort of premise as grounding the series. And so each book features its own set of characters and its own trial, and the characters from one book hand off the story to the other. And then you'll sort of, you know, hear about references to the characters in each book, but you can certainly pick up the series anywhere you'd like.
Very cool.
Here's a good question. Writing 2 books at the same time, is that normal?
No. No, and it's not recommended either. And because I started to do that, Kimberly,
Well, I have, not by choice, but
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked it because as soon as I got bored of one, I could flip to the other and back and forth. But the double deadline thing almost killed me.
Yeah, Ann Garvin, my friend Ann Garvin, she calls it you having a book boyfriend. It's good, like when you're just getting like so wrapped up in one book to have a book boyfriend to work on. And
Yeah,
I like
love
that
that.
idea,
that's
but
great.
and I think the thing was, as I was writing in her defense, as I was writing the first book in the series in her defense, Carly Jenner was a law clerk in that book. I was a law clerk at one time. Law clerks are very powerful people in a courtroom because they're pretty much unnoticed, and but yet they do so much work and they know so much behind the scenes. And so I wrote this law clerk, and then knowing that that's sort of who she would be, she started to take on a little bit of a life of her own, and I started to explore, wait, what would she look like, what would her story be? And so I started, and then we were sort of my agent and I were sort of exploring, like, which is the first book we're going to go out with, and we were going back and forth. So I was going back and forth writing, and then once we settled on In Her Defense, then I just leaned in and I was like, I have to finish in her defense, and then I finished BARR NONE later. But yeah, it because they are, even though they take place in the same world, the characters are completely different. I mean, In Her Defense is 30-something-year-old single moms, and BARR NONE is younger, 20-something-year-old attorneys who are at the start of their career. It was a totally different vibe, and so it was fun to go back and forth between those two things.
And Renee wants to know if you live at River's Edge, Killer Amy.
So River's Edge is a fictional New York town. I lived in New York. I lived and I practiced in New York for 13 years. And River's Edge is very loosely based on two places: Ridgewood, New Jersey, where I did live. And actually River's Edge was going to be in New Jersey, but then the criminal procedure of New Jersey didn't work, and it had to be New York. And then I thought it'd be more fun to make it New York. And then I wrote a lot of this book in Nyack, New York. And there's a vibe in Nyack that I really loved too, that definitely sort of found its way into this book. But it is a completely fictional town.
So these two books are legal thrillers, which is the first time you've written any sort of legal something, right? Because you had written how many books before this?
5 books. Before.
5. And
five novels.
And some of them were suspense thriller kind of books, but not all of them. But why did you all of a sudden switch to the legal thing? And why didn't you start with the legal thing? Or were you like, I need some time and some space?
Yeah. I mean, I took a sabbatical from the law over 10 years ago, and I really didn't first leave to write. I sort of found, I reconnected with writing while I was on my sabbatical. And then I really didn't think, I mean, I was a corporate litigator. I was not like John Grisham style, sexy law practice. And so I really didn't think that's what I was going to write. And it became a question at a lot of, events, and readers would say to me, well, wait, you're a lawyer. Why don't you write legal fiction? And there would always be like disgruntled lawyers, like running in the background of my books. But I sort of stayed away from it. I did have a lot of PTSD. And then to be perfectly honest with you, I think I really didn't close the door on the idea of going back to practicing law. I wrote nonfiction books too about leaving the law. I wrote Lawyer Interrupted for the American Bar Association about sort of people using their JD for a variety of different things. But I think probably in the back of my mind, I didn't really imagine that I should close the door on that sort of part of my life. And this past year, I wrote with a co-author my second nonfiction book called How to Leave the Law. And I think obviously that contract was signed in 2020. So I was writing that book for a long time. And I think as I was starting to write that book, and I started to understand, like, I'll never go back to practicing law the way I did before, I think it kind of freed me. Around the same time I signed the contract for How to Leave the Law, I got the idea of writing this River's Edge Law Club series I started in 2020. And so I really do think that there was something in my brain that had to say, you probably won't go back to that world. And like, once I was ready to shut the door on it, then I was really ready to rip open the curtain too. Like that was important to me. Yeah.
Do you have a preference of writing nonfiction or fiction, or are they just so, I mean, they're obviously completely different, but do you have one that you enjoy more than the other?
I mean, I am a fiction writer. I am a novel writer. That is my passion. That's what I love. But there is something fun, and again, it's maybe like the book boyfriend thing. There is something fun about switching gears, doing research, kind of interviewing people, distilling that. There's something really fun about that, and I think it's, like I said, fiction writing is definitely my passion, but there is something really comforting about writing a book that feels like it has answers, even though that's not really it's not really true. But it feels like, okay, here's a question I'm going to ask, and here are the answers, and there's something a little different about that. Yeah.
But it's funny you say that, because so many authors who come on here and we ask, like, why do you write thrillers? Why do you write such dark books? And they have some sort of like version of that answer, not so much that, that they have the answers, but that they're making up the answers for these questions that are, difficult questions, like why do people kill, and and what happened to this person, and they're making up the right answers in order to give it some sort of answer in their head, I think.
Yeah. Context. Yeah. And because, truthfully, I've written this very, very niche nonfiction, but I always say the reason I won't write a memoir, or I don't write, nonfiction in quite that way, is that I'm not brave enough, right? So that's why I write fiction. But I think fiction is such a fun way to hide the truth. Like I love teasing out things that I'm thinking about, that I'm worried about, that I'm trying to kind of solve. I love the idea of teasing that out and putting it in a story, and yeah, and really kind of, I mean, Bar None is definitely a book that explores motivation, and I love like the Disney villain origin stories. I love that, and like Bar None is a lot about like what makes people unravel, what makes people make bad decisions, what makes people go rogue, and I loved sort of teasing that out and thinking about that, certainly in the law firm world, and in this very specific world that I lived in, which is New York City big law.
Well, and I loved, I mean, you use dual timelines, and I love, as a reader, reading books set in the past and the present. And you also had this really cool way of breaking up the novel. You had the opening statements and the trial and the closing arguments. It was just very clever. And I think it was a great way to bring the reader into this world. Why do you think, as readers, we're so kind of obsessed with legal thrillers?
Well, I think, trials in particular, I was a litigator, so I was a trial lawyer. I tried cases. Of course, a big part of being a litigator has nothing to do with trying cases. That's a big misnomer. And there's a big reason why I eventually burned out practicing law. Because a lot of it is getting ready for trials that never happen, or getting ready for trials that you don't want to happen. And, but I was a trial lawyer, and trials at their core are a storytelling event, right? And they are about a lot of different people's version of the story, and a group of people deciding which version of the story they believe. And so, when I transitioned from a litigator to a novelist, at first I thought that was so bizarre. Like, I can't believe I'm making this bizarre transition, and then when I really thought about it, distilled to its essence, like, I was always a storyteller. I loved, that is the part of the law I loved, was diving into a case, figuring out the story I could tell, the story I could put together. And I think that's why we're drawn to those sorts of stories, because the legal thriller that I wanted to write, the legal thrillers I want to continue to write, are about what happens in the courtroom and outside. And I think those sorts of, like, how the human emotions play out, obviously inside the courtroom and then spill out outside, to me are just so fun to explore.
So
I love that.
Telling the truth, Gwyneth, or the person she skied into or didn't ski into?
I know, right? Fascinating.
I mean, because they
love
both
these
have
stories. We love these stories because
right.
they're like, when you hear these stories, right? You say to yourself, but how can there be so many competing versions? Who's lying?
Right.
And the truth is, there can be all these competing versions of the truth, and it's so fascinating to us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that's why, I mean, because there's a big group of authors who are former attorneys who leave the law. Do you think that I mean, have you talked to other attorneys who've shifted gears into writing books? Do they have the same answer? Because that was one of my questions. Why are so many former attorneys authors now?
Well, I'll tell you, and not only are they, a lot of lawyers transition to writing, a lot of lawyers transition to a lot of creative fields, different artistic fields, entrepreneurial fields, which I think is its own kind of creativity. And I have come to understand this from doing my research for Lawyer Interrupted and How to Leave the Law, that the law actually attracts very creative people. There's this idea that, oh my goodness, I'm going to get to creatively solve problems, and I'm going to, there is an idea for a lot of us that the law is going to be a very creative field, and in fact, it's not. In most cases, the practice of law, unless you're a solo practitioner, which is a really awesome creative kind of niche of practicing law, but in most cases, if you practice law the way I did, your creativity is completely stifled. And so a lot of lawyers get burnt out and look for other outlets for that creativity. And I think that's what leads to a lot of lawyers turned writers and lawyers turned creatives in other fields as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny, like you hear all these attorneys complaining about the hours and like the crazy, the job, the pressures of the job. And then they become a novelist and think, oh, it's going to be so easy. They're like, deadline.
Right. Yeah. It's a totally different kind of pressure. Yeah.
At least you get to do it in your pajamas. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I do think that I'm less jaded in the publishing field and things. I'm not as easily aggravated by things that happen in the publishing world because I was sort of prepared. Not that it's better or worse, but I just was prepared I was so cynical after leaving the law.
Well, we are so glad you joined the club, the writing club too. So we're so glad you're here. Killer Author Club and the writing club. So
thank you.
I know. Same. Yes.
Wonderful.
All right. Kara, have you been looking at the questions? Because I kind of got distracted.
Well, I think it's time for the killer giveaway, Kimberly.
Okay. It's time for the killer giveaway, y'all.
It is.
I am pulling it up on my screen. Okay. Amy is giving away 2 signed sets of In Her Defense and Bar None. All you have to do is answer this question about our killer guest, and we will pick from the correct answers. Bonus points for joining the club or subscribing to our YouTube channel. I'm laughing at this question.
Yeah, I know.
What was one of Amy's former professions? I just can't even imagine what it was.
What's the question? Oh, that's the question. Oh,
that's the question. What was one of Amy's former professions? So drop your answer in the comments. If you give us the wrong answer, I will laugh out loud.
Yeah, no one needs to cheat on this one. You just throw them all in there.
And we will come back in like 24 hours, so tomorrow night sometime, and we will start choosing the winners randomly from the answers, the correct answers.
And of course, the Killer Author Club loves bookstores and appreciate your support of them. So Amy has selected the fabulous Firefly Bookstore in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, where you can order your own signed copies of Bar None and all of Amy's books. So Amy, tell us why Firefly is special to you.
Well, Firefly is honestly the last standing indie bookstore in the immediate radius of my home. I moved from New York over 10 years ago. I live in rural Pennsylvania. And one of the really fun things about Firefly is that a few years ago, they moved from a smaller space across the street to a bigger space across the street. Like, I was so excited to see them expanding. Imagine, right? An indie bookstore. Right. And they have hosted many many book parties for me. I absolutely love the space. They also have a banned book club where they feature banned books. They've gotten actually some national notoriety for that. It is a fabulous bookstore. It's actually in Kutztown is a college town, so it's on sort of the campus of a college, and a really sweet main street, and just a really lovely little area. And yeah, so they've been really good to me, and they do always carry signed copies of all my books, and so you can always order copies of any of my books from there. They'll be signed.
And we'll be sure to drop the link to Fireflies. Kimberly did that, so you can order any of Amy's books and any other books on your wish list from Firefly. So thank you for that.
Love it.
All right.
Okay, so we have a few minutes for Ask a Killer. Anything. If you have any questions, Q&A, if you dare, ask us anything. I saw one in here. I wanted to ask Amy. Do you like living in near Kutztown?
Yeah, I do. It's really funny because I actually grew up probably about an hour from here. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and then I went to law school in DC, and then practiced in New York. So I lived outside of Pennsylvania for about 20 years, and then moved back here, like I said, about 10 years ago when I left the law, and I've raised my kids here. And there's been something very full circle about that. It's been a very fun experience. It is definitely a big change from New York. And, my kids, they left New York when they were 5, 3, and 1. They still have New York accents. They still call themselves New Yorkers. They still root for only New York teams, much to my poor father's chagrin. He's a Philadelphia sports fan, tried and true. But yeah, it is. It is a really beautiful place to raise children and to live. And you will definitely see elements of Pennsylvania in a lot of my books. Not the River's Edge Law Club, but in earlier books, you will definitely see a lot of Pennsylvania influence.
Love it. So do you have another novel or an idea for one in the making? Can you talk about it yet?
I can, yeah. I mean, I do still have the River's Edge Law Club series has additional books in the works, but I am also working on a standalone novel, and I can just tell you the working title right now is The Ghostwriter, and it is about a woman who was the ghostwriter for her lover for many years, and when they break up, things go a little awry, and it is a legal thriller, and that's all I can tell you right now.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. Really excited about it.
So Kimberly, do we have a swag winner this?
We do have a swag winner. Let's see who it is. Membership has its privileges, y'all. Every episode we choose a name from the Killer Author Club Clubhouse, which is the private group on Facebook. We draw a name to win a piece of Killer Author Club swag. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have candles.
I love it.
We have totes, we have hats, so much fun stuff, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. So tonight's winner is Claire Datar. Please send one of the killers your address, and we will send some Killer Author Club swag your way.
Oh, that is so fabulous. Yes. I love that.
And now, we give away swag, but Amy, we give away the most important prize to you at the end of the show for surviving the Killer Author Club. So congratulations on surviving. And so we have this little token of our gratitude. Please cut it out.
Tiny.
Put it on the wall next to all your writing awards and your law degree, and belongs right up there. But thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to you three. It's a fabulous program. Thanks for all that you do for authors and for the genre, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, and you guys, that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to all of you guys for asking questions and for being here, and especially to Amy. We're back on April 11th for a double feature beginning at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Pacific time with the Killer Author Clubhouse Book Club and What's Done in the Darkness by the incomparable Laura McHugh. And then at 9,
Love Laura.
8, and 7, 6, whatever. Okay. We will chat with the twisty Wendy Hurd about her upcoming novel, You Can Trust Me.
So
She's
good.
amazing too. So the times, the full schedule, past episodes, and lots more are at killerauthorclub.com. So check it out. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, or go shopping for some merch. We really appreciate your support, and thanks for being here. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
I guess I'm a killer.